Welcome to Subramani. Today I'm going to do a topic which is little interesting and why I consider equity as a completely different asset class than say gold or copper or bonds or even real estate, right? So my logic is when you are buying buying an equity share, you're buying a very dynamic asset. You buy gold and keep it in one place. Next 30 years it will not move. It will be exactly where you left it. It will not be a different piece of gold in 2050 than what you bought in 2020, or what you bought in 1980 as a brick of gold will still remain a brick of gold or silver, whatever you bought it, right? Bonds will do their job properly. There is nothing to be surprised about what it does or shocked about what it does. But look at equity. The equity share of say HDFC Limited or say HDFC Bank, which I bought in 1992, 93, 94 for 10 rupees or 40 rupees, is not the same HDFC Bank which I am dealing with in 2020, because HDFC Bank is a concept which was in the head of Mr. Deepak Parekh. He then went and searched and found one Mr. Aditya Puri who was working with Citibank, and told him, look, you made your money, now come and build something useful in India. So Mr. Puri built a world-class bank. I am not talking about equity performance, but the HDFC Bank of 1994 and the HDFC Bank of 2020 are completely different animals, right? So when they started off in 1990, they actually started off even earlier. The IPO was 1994. I still remember their first office in Lower Parel, where their current head office is built and constructed. It is an old, dilapidated building. I remember because when HDFC Securities started, they also got to use the same building, which was a horrible, odd-shaped building. Anyway, I am digressing. So the concept is, when you're buying equity, you're buying a completely different asset class than say gold or copper or silver, because it is dynamic. Bunch of people have got together to build something, so you have to constantly view and say, are they going in the right direction, right? So in 1994, the mandate for Mr. Aditya Puri was to build a world-class bank. And for that he did world-class recruiting, he got world-class technology, he got good people, good training, and put together a great team. Obviously he picked people from all over the country and perhaps all over the world, because I know a couple of people who left their jobs abroad to come back and join. So that is how it is. So if you look at that company, obviously that company has come a long way from there. So constantly if you looked at it and you said, oh, I bought this for 40 rupees, now the price has gone to 80, now the price has gone to 160. The 160 rupee HDFC Bank is very different from the 40 rupee HDFC Bank, because the 40 rupee HDFC Bank just told you that this is what we are going to do. And at every step they gave you proof that yes, they were doing what they were supposed to do. Now take a completely different company called Reliance Power. When Reliance Power came with an IPO at 450 bucks, I still think it's a joke. I had remarked to people saying 75 rupees is the price at which it should have come, because at that price, on that day, your NTPC was quoting at 225 rupees, and at best RCom would have had same capacity as NTPC over 15-20 years. So I was not willing to pay such a premium for a company which had nothing to show except big dreams. Now HDFC Bank versus Reliance Power, or Reliance Industries versus Reliance Power. When Reliance set out to build Jio, maybe 10 years back or 12 years back, when they started laying the pipes and all, somebody there knew that this is going to happen. So the company called Reliance Industries of 2002 was very different from the company of 2012, when it was saying that this is all we are going to do in telecom. And it's very different from the company in 2020, where so many big players, international players, have put their money. So at every stage they were saying, this is what we will do. The market was saying, I don't know whether you will really do, and you're borrowing too much. and then they said, oh, you have done something, so the price went up. So when you see the price fluctuation, it is not because of just what is happening in the market. It is because the asset which you have bought, unlike other assets, is a dynamic asset. Something keeps happening to the asset. What can happen in a bond? You can lose value because that company is defaulted, so it can go down. It cannot appreciate. It just cannot appreciate. Maybe some interest rate changes which are at the macro level. It is not because this company did anything, right? So the asset class itself, like your great grandfather was lucky enough, or great grandfather was very lucky that he bought a house for you which is 4,000 square foot in Marine Drive. You're very lucky that he bought it at that time. That has appreciated not because of anything else except that Bombay itself grew, Bombay became very prosperous. Now the same asset, if it had been bought in some other town which didn't grow, or if you have a huge plot of land, maybe 40,000 square feet or even more compared to this house, and in a village where progress has not touched, that value has not gone up, not because anything that the land could have done or anything that the real estate could have done. You couldn't have shifted your Marine Drive house to New York because New York has appreciated. You just couldn't have done that, right? It is an asset which you have bought. You have to take a view whether to hold it, whether to sell it. Whereas in equity, the dynamism of the asset is such that you have to pay attention and you have to make sure that so you realize that this is a dynamic asset. You also realize that this is an asset where you cannot force people to work for you. So what works for equity to do well? The most important thing that you have to do is to make sure that your country is a democratic country. Please understand, whether it's India, France, UK, Germany, US, Japan, if there is an economy, if there is a equity market which has done well, it is because there is democracy. Forget China. China's market seems to be more rigged than real, so I would ignore China when I'm talking of long term wealth creation by equity. So first of all, it's important that you have democracy. Second, people have the right to move in and move out of companies which are doing move out of companies which are doing badly and move into companies which are doing well. So it happened to you, right? You moved out of Reliance Power, you moved into Reliance Industries because you realized that that man there, Mr. Mukesh Ambani or Mr. Deepak Parekh or Mr. Aditya Puri or the Murugappa group, where one individual is not standing out like in these groups, they have done something dynamic to the organization because of which the organization has grown its money for you. So maybe you bought these shares, some of these shares which I bought in 1980s. It is not the same company. Cholamandalam in 1986 was very different from the Cholamandalam of 2020. You're talking of 34 years. Something dynamic has happened to the company. Yes, the company will go through its ups and downs, but largely if you feel the philosophy is right, it's like why you invest in a dynamic, in a mutual fund, equity mutual fund. The fund manager will decide which to keep and which to throw out. He can grow the fund, right? So similarly, a company can grow. But what happens when you buy real estate? Well, it will definitely give you a return. It will give you rent. If you don't touch the rent, you can use the rent to buy another house. So you will have a string of houses. Yes, but the house itself doesn't do anything. You could be very lucky that you bought in a better location than in a bad location. The fact that nobody occupied it and nobody committed suicide there and got into a police case, you can get into trouble even while doing equity. Even companies can go very bad, like the ADAG group, but you can walk out, right? You wouldn't have sold your house and put money into Reliance Power, and if you did it, you would have got out maybe at 430, 420, some price you would have got out. You had the choice. Why? Because there was a democracy. Because you would have said, oh, this company is not creating any, it is only talking, it is not creating any cash. You would have used those criteria and got out. Like you would have got out of, I invested in GMR for exactly 2 days. I bought it at 71, sold it at 69 when I heard that the company is not doing well. So these kind of choices you have, it's a dynamic thing by itself. Gold is dynamic by the environment around it. Real estate is dynamic by the environment around it. You bought in a good location, price went up, you got good returns, you got tenants continuously. that gave you cash flow. Yes, but the asset itself didn't do anything. When the asset itself does something, you will have 300x growth like Reliance, or 600x growth from 77 for Reliance Industries, or that kind of, or Wipro. That kind of growth happens only because the asset itself is dynamic. It has got nothing to do with the environment, or I would put it this way, it is a dynamic asset. It depends on what it does, and it depends on what the environment around it does. Obviously, when the environment is better, the growth will be better. If the environment is not so good, the growth will not be good. So you understand that equity is an asset, but very different from other assets, because you have to pay attention to what it is doing, whether it is doing what it is saying it will do, and whether the environment around allows that to happen. For instance, a company, suppose there was a listed company which ran a bunch of Udupi joints all over the country. Maybe it will not do well, because going forward kids are not choosing to go to Udupi. Our generation went to the Udupi, we still go, but the younger kids don't go to Udupis, they go to the McD's, and they choose other restaurants. So given that, maybe I would have sold that and bought some other chain, right? I don't know, because it's the equity that you're buying can work wonders. It depends on the man and the team that he builds, or the woman and the team that she builds. Biocon is a great example. Biocon, which I bought at the IPO, and Biocon, which I'm holding today, are two completely different companies. That time it had promise, now it has got performance. Now when there is promise and no performance, you are looking at it on a quarter to quarter basis and seeing, are they going in the right direction, are they going in the right direction, are they going in the right direction. But today I think I can look at Biocon on a 2-year, 3-year basis and don't have to worry on a quarter basis. I don't remember last time when I looked at the quarterly results of Biocon, because it gives you more comfort saying, okay, I don't have to, Colgate, I don't even remember, Nestle, I don't remember when I saw the quarterly results. Largely it is going as per the route map. It is going at a decent pace. It cannot gallop, it cannot, nor has it stopped, right? So remember, the asset class is dynamic, and therefore you have to pay attention, and therefore the company of the Biocon of 2020, Biocon of 2010 and Biocon of 2005 are 3 different companies, because the asset class itself is dynamic. Thank you.